Crypto is for everyone, not just rocket scientists, venture capitalists, and high IQ developers. Welcome to The Agenda, a Cointelegraph podcast that explores the promises of crypto, blockchain, and Web3, and how regular-ass people level up with technology.
Welcome to The Agenda. I'm Jonathan, the senior copy editor at Cointelegraph, and I co-host this podcast with Ray, our head of markets. Today's episode is part 2 of a conversation we recently had with Naja Roberts, a Bitcoin educator, advocate, and entrepreneur who has made it her mission to educate the people on the benefits of Bitcoin. She sees the digital asset as a potential tool to build wealth in Black communities, as well as other communities that have been historically excluded from the traditional financial system. Now, if you haven't listened to part 1 yet, navigate over to the show page on whatever streaming service you're using, and be sure to give that a listen. Or head on over to cointelegraph.com/podcasts and listen there. In the second half of our convo, we discuss building financial literacy, what crypto virgins need to know before buying their first Bitcoin, the struggles of setting up a community-focused crypto exchange, and so much more. So click that subscribe button so that you don't miss out on the next episode, and then enjoy part 2 of our interview with Naja Roberts, aka the Queen of Crypto. I want to go back to what you and Ray were talking about earlier, which is the fact that we are in a down market. People have lost money. I'm sure this makes it more challenging to onboard people, to keep them interested, and to convert them to believers that crypto has something beneficial for them. But it's also meant that we have seen a lot of reports, or I've seen a lot of reports, that Black Americans have been hit particularly hard by the declining prices in Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, that Black Americans are more likely to invest in cryptocurrencies than other groups, hold less stocks, hold more crypto. Now stocks are down too, obviously. And then because we have less wealth overall as a community to invest, when we do lose that wealth, even if they are just paper losses, it affects us more, whether in reality or just psychologically. But I'm curious how you respond to these stories and react to these stories when you hear them, and how that affects the way that you educate people. And I'm also curious what you think the solution to that is. Is it more financial education and literacy so that people know this is a long-term thing, that people know don't invest more than you can afford to lose? I mean, should people just be holding for the next 60 years and just be patient?
No, they shouldn't be holding for the next 60 years because I won't be here to see it. So we gotta do something a little bit closer than that. I'm 52. So, anyways, what I am suggesting to answer kind of all of your question is it is really, really important to have consumer protection being education. And so I had a long conversation several times with the attorneys for Maxine Waters' office and all this stuff around financial inclusion and should Bitcoin be for accredited investors and yada, yada, yada. And the answer is absolutely no. Education is the best consumer education we can do for the community. But the community has got to know exactly what you said. You never invest more than you can afford to lose. That is a ground rule, no matter what you're in, stocks, whatever it is. You have got to just know that. And then the biggest thing that they need to know, and we have to continue to preach, is this isn't get rich quick. And I have always said, never invest, and you can run it back for years, never invest in companies, first and foremost, in this space that there are stadiums named after. I've said this vocally, never invest, because there is something else going on. And I won't get into that, but I know the ins and outs of that as well. Aside of this whole other debacle, there's some other ones that are doing some stuff. But not only that, Be very careful in what you invest in because all coins are not created equal. And most of these coins are created to extract money from your bank account. So when you know that going in, you're very careful in what you invest in. And I've always explained an altcoin to my community. I think that was Ray saying when he stays away from was I don't think it was. It was Ray said that he stays away from investing in friends and family's businesses because it doesn't always turn out well. And so when I invest in an altcoin, and I say this all the time, it's like I'm loaning money to Uncle Pete. Uncle Pete may or may not pay me back. And I know that when I loan him money. So if you buy an altcoin or alternative to Bitcoin, you go into it knowing that you may or may not get paid back. So if Uncle Pete doesn't pay you back, Cousin Pete doesn't pay you back, then you're not hurt because you knew that that could be the possible end result. When you're buying an altcoin, you have got to know that it may or may not pay you back. And if it doesn't, you're not really hurt because you already knew going into it what it was. But when you buy Bitcoin specifically, you should be expecting it to do exactly what the code tells us it's going to do based on the halving every 4 years, based on just all these things that Bitcoin has made a promise. And so that's how I explain it to our community. So I hope that helps answer your question a little bit.
It sure does. And that's actually a great segue into what I wanted to ask you next, which is that I mentioned in the intro that the first place I heard you talk was the Black Bitcoin Billionaire Group on Clubhouse, which I know that you co-founded Black Bitcoin Billionaire. And as a part of that, I believe you ran the, what was it called? The Crypto Baby Hour or?
Crypto Virgin Hour.
Crypto Virgin Hour, even more salacious. I love it. So you spent a lot of time onboarding people who knew absolutely nothing about Bitcoin, nothing about cryptocurrency, answering the most fundamental and basic of questions. So I was curious, what are some of the most common barriers that the average person faces, and then perhaps people in the Black community or other historically marginalized communities face when it comes to getting into Bitcoin and stacking up those Satoshis?
Well, I think one of the biggest barriers that people face is like where to start and who to trust, how to do this, what is my first step, and then after that, what, and then once I have it, then what. So I think just somebody to walk them through the basics is what our community needs the most, and that is why we have tried to give Black glove service to our community, like somebody that they can actually pick up the phone and talk to, somebody that will actually help and show them how to get $200 or $5 worth of Bitcoin. And we use, even though we have our own exchange, we always send people to Cash App or the Black Wall Street wallet. We always send, because this is about accessibility, not our monetization. We really feel like we're a company that is mission over monetization. And in order for us, our community to really get it and get acclimated, we've got to really nurture our community because it took us a long time to get into the financial situation that we're in. And it's going to take us a long time to get out of it. And it's going to take somebody really taking the time to share and to really show people what's in it for them. Because I can talk all day about how fabulous my life is and the glam, and it's not about that with our community. They need to know what's in this, how does this affect me, and what does this look like down the line? Because we're always a right now, right now, right now. What's in this right now? And so that's been a problem with our community. And so since we know that and we can identify that, we're just trying to find strategic, fun, innovative ways. Even though these aren't children, well, we do deal with the children, but we realize that a lot of our adults they're not like children, but when you come into a new space, everybody needs just basic stuff. Stop talking over people's heads. Stop, using all this big jargon, like these big words is not necessary. We just need to be down to earth and be about the people's business. And that barrier in our community is something that has to be overcome. And I know that if we have a brick and mortar in every hood across the United States, we can really establish that because people really come in and they're genuinely wanting to learn. And because they have an atmosphere where they can come, feel comfortable, like we find that people don't even want to go home, after we finish a class or something like they like stick around, hang around and talk. And it's really just getting our community comfortable with this new digital economy that we're in. And so that's it.
Across the nation, regardless of race, why do you think Americans struggle with financial literacy, and what simple things could be done to fix this problem?
Well, heck, we know there's hardly any school districts talking about financial literacy, period. It's always been ridiculous that they have left financial literacy out of schools. And again, that's intentional for everyone because if they have people that don't know better, they won't do better. And they continue to have people that will work in this country and not really understand that they're working for money instead of allowing money to work for them. And so the select few that get that memo, they do well. And so as we continue to get into this new digital space, education has got to be the foundational piece for both children and adults. And I think it's going to make a world of difference. It's going to take some time. This is not a easy situation. This is everyone teaching one, everyone taking the time to show a different type of willingness to have tolerance for people that are slow and that need to be brought along. And so it's just a whole nother space. And even, as Jonathan was talking about us on Clubhouse, we realized that we couldn't be like some of the other Bitcoin rooms where they put people down because, like, oh, well, that's a dumb question. We all came together and collectively said we're going to be as nice as possible. And we're not going to be kicking people off the stage because they disagree with us. Let's have a dialogue because people are different. People are going to have different perspectives. People are going to come from all different economic backgrounds, and we've got to be sensitive to that, right? And so we know that when we're talking to people, there's different nuances of their cultures, there's different nuances of their community, of their hoods, where they don't they run from insurance companies in Black communities. Why is that? Because the insurance man, just like Sam Bankman-Fried, they stole a lot of communities' money back in the day, and so people did not want to deal with financial services people that walk to the door. It's just almost like they do Jehovah Witnesses. But you have to know the culture in order to understand how to circumvent some of the, I would say, stereotypes and some of the experiences that they've been through. And so I think we've got a good handle on that, and we really have a fighting chance of educating our community when we get the opportunity to do so, because funding is a whole nother beast for Black tech founders. And I'll just say it that way. And because of the fact that we're not here to rape, rob, and pillage our community, we're finding it hard to get the funding that we need because everybody wants to know how we're going to extract funds out of our community. And that's not what we're going into the community for. So it's been a little bit difficult.
Exactly. Yeah, funding is always about extracting some profit. It's very exploitative in a way, isn't it?
Yes.
So I know that you founded a crypto exchange and you talked a bit about that earlier. What are some of the major roadblocks that you've encountered? Did you need to get a bank charter? Have you set up any infrastructure for an app? Is there any sort of digital infrastructure, debit cards? Just give us a rundown on what that process was like, because the only people I know who founded cryptocurrency exchanges are in jail or they live in Dubai. What was that journey like for you?
So right now we're in California, obviously. And so what we are doing or what we've done in the past is made sure that every year we write to the state of California to find out if we in fact need an MSB, money service business license. And just depending on, again, how the regulation changes, we'll find all those things out. And we're really treading on thin water, to be quite honest. But what we do is KYC, and I know a lot of people are opposed to that. We've got to. We're in the limelight, like we're right where anybody can come and say, hey, she's allowing terrorists and money launderers, blah, blah, blah. So we do that we do that regulatory. So we're fenced a registered. We did not get a bank charter because we don't want to be a part of that system, because at the end of the day, you wind up having to report to the Federal Reserve Bank. We did have to go through the Federal Reserve Bank to bear the name, which we're about to change. Well, we're not even about to change it. We've done a couple of things, but the journey has been asking permission to be called the Bitcoin Bank, because we're not a federally chartered bank. And at the end of the day, they had to say that there was no way to keep us from doing that, because we're not federally chartered and we don't plan on ever being federally chartered. So we got the permission just about a year ago to use the word Bitcoin Bank, BANQ. And so Crypto Blockchain Plug, which was our initial exchange, we actually filed for a nonprofit organization status so that we can educate the community through Crypto Blockchain Plug without mixing the for-profit with the nonprofit, because we understand we need an educational component, a strong one, and we need to get paid to do that. So we need to go to Chase and all these other places and say, hey, help us educate our community, not just on cryptocurrency, but on how money works, period, because they don't even know how we got into the situation that we're in financially, meaning, the 1913 Federal Reserve and all those things. So we're doing the educational component with that. And then as it relates to Bitcoin Bank, those 41 cities that I'm talking to you about, we are going into each one of these states, and we are getting our MSB if that's what they require, and all the licensing needed to be boots on the ground in that community. And so we're doing that very meticulously. That whole venture is about $110 million. And that's what we've been looking to raise. And again, it's been very difficult because they want to know how we're going to get $100 billion back from doing this $100 million. And so we're looking to open these Bitcoin banks across the United States, with Crypto Blockchain Plug being the educational component inside of the bank, and just making those work in tandem. And so that's what we've been up to the last year, just really getting ironclad, getting all of our trademarks and all those things in place so we can really do this correctly without them coming. Because I tweeted last night, if I had stole the amount of money that Sam Bankman-Fried stole, I would have been arrested in 30 minutes. But he got 30 days to act like he was oblivious and just do all the things that he needs to do, get his business affairs in order, but they don't come to us like that. Hint, hint, Arthur Hayes. They just come for us, and then we have to figure things out later, right? So I am very well aware that we've got to cross our T's and dot our I's, because they are not only watching, but they will come gunning for me and my husband as soon as they get the opportunity if we don't do this correctly. So that's that journey.
I like the energy. It reminds me of the old Black Panther Party days. Speak truth to power, protect your own community, all of that. So we need more people like you in this space and just in general.
Well, I appreciate that. And I've early on resolved that this is a by any means necessary. And I'm just leave it at that, because I understand that there are going to have to be some martyrs for this cause to really pull our people out of the situation that we're in. Because I mean, if you look around, nothing else is doing it and nobody else is doing it. And if they are doing it, they're talking about, and not shooting anybody down, they're buying banks, they're buying MDIs, minority deposit institutions, and they're starting these online banks and they're doing all this stuff. But at the end of the day, what I have found is they have to go back and get permission from the Federal Reserve banks. And if they say no, there's nothing that they can do. We've gone to One United Bank, we've gone to Broadway Federal, we've bank accounts. That's another thing I want to share, because you said what the journey has been. We're literally this year probably on our 15th bank account. So they not only shut down my business accounts, they shut down my personal accounts, they shut down everything that they can shut down around me to keep me where I can't get money to the miners that we have that are over in Korea or wherever, wherever we're buying our Bitcoin from. They've done their very, not even level best. They've gone over and above to make sure that they stagnate our business. And, for a time there, they were very successful. I was getting bank accounts shut down left and right. The other barrier that I have as an exchange is even like Silvergate. We all know, or some of you may or may not know, Silvergate Bank is a bank that will bank you if you're a cryptocurrency company. But my barrier was they told me I had to have $1 million a day minimum. I don't hold $1 million a day. I'm not doing some of the things that some of these other exchanges are doing to ensure that they're padding their pockets, because we immediately take the money from the individuals and we immediately give them their Bitcoin. We're not holding on to their Bitcoin. We're teaching them day one to be self-sovereign. So I don't have a treasury sitting somewhere. My only treasury is the money that we make from our transactions and or the Bitcoin that we have sitting that we sell. So we've been in a situation bank-wise where banks have just been taxing us. They've been taxing us by way of, hey, they got $200,000 in the bank. We're closing their account and we're going to tell them we'll give it back to them in 30 to 45 days. The price of Bitcoin fluctuates within that time. So if they've got $100,000 of mine holding it for 45 days, and now Bitcoin has gone from 17,000 to 40,000, I've taken that loss, or or vice versa. And it has happened in the time where Bitcoin has risen in price, where they've held our funds from one bank account to a transition to open an account in another place. So there are some challenges in this space. It's definitely not all rosy. And we get calls from other states. They're like, "Oh, you're not supposed to be operating here, and what are you doing? Or are you doing KYC?" And so, we understand that there's a lot of risk involved with this. And so we're doing our very best to make sure that we're just even able to operate. I'll say it that way.
Wow. That's a lot to take in. Thanks for sharing all the detail of that challenge, because from my side, it just looks like these crypto companies spin up out of the blue. These DeFi protocols and Bybit Exchange and Binance literally just materialized out of thin air and just became a multi-billion-dollar company overnight back in 2017, or it might have been early 2018. So I know that the journey is fraught with challenge, but you see the big boys in the space and just kind of assume that once you hit a certain size, it's just easy to keep going. But you've really outlined how difficult and how persistent you must be, and how it's an unending challenge trying to operate a legitimate cryptocurrency exchange in the United States.
Well, I think that just kind of only applies to us little folks that are doing the exchanges. Because if you think about it, the big ones like Coinbase, FTX, Binance, all of them, they weren't teaching self sovereignty. So you buy your Bitcoin and you leave it on their exchange. They literally don't have to proof up until you come get it. So they could have done a number of things with your Bitcoin, with they've had the run of people's money for the lion's share of what, 4 years, 4 or 5 years. They have done whatever they wanted to do. I speak to people today, even like last month, I met an African American gentleman. He's like, "Oh, I got like $1.6 million worth of Bitcoin on Coinbase, just sitting." He's had it there since 2017. And it's like, at what point were you going to put it in? What point are you going to put it in a wallet? And he was like, "I didn't know that's what I needed to do," because nobody was actually teaching and talking about that. So even with that $1.6 million worth of Bitcoin, if I had it sitting on my books, I would be able to do a whole bunch of maneuvering. But I don't, because if you bought 1.6 from me, you have it immediately, because we would have made you order a ledger factory direct, and we put your 1.6 million on your ledger. It's in your hands, it's out of mine, and we teach you how to make sure you have access to your seed words at all times, and not necessarily depending on that device, because the device might fall in the water, get stolen, whatever. We really educate people that the seed words are the most important part of this whole thing. And so all that to say, they can do what they're doing because they have ample amount of people that have not been educated properly on taking and holding and possessing their private keys. So they're enjoying life. They're buying and renaming the Staples Center, crypto.com. They're using people's funds to do all those things, aside of the fact that their algorithms and things. Somebody asked, I think it was Ray asked about us doing things online and automation, and we can do that, but I don't even want us as a community to have a debit card, because a debit card puts us right back in the mindset of being spenders, because that's the first thing we do is want to know how to spend. And I think it takes us back into a space we're trying to get away from. I want us not to really have a hard time spending it, but have to have a little bit more steps to make you think twice about just being so easy to swipe. So, in my opinion, a lot of people may not like it, but I think it's a little bit better for us to have to go through a few more steps to make us think, do I really want to do XYZ to go buy XYZ? And again, it's a whole mindset shift. We got a lot of work to do. So that's it for me.
That makes sense. I want to don you the Madam C.J. Walker of the digital revolution.
Well, they dubbed me the young Harriet Tubman of the cryptocurrency space, and I've actually taken that on because I'm showing up with my guns blazing, and I got to lead my people out of here and tell them if they want to smell freedom, just shut up, be quiet, and keep walking. That's what we got to do. We got to be quiet right now. We got to be stealth like. We have got to be stealth like and keep walking. If you smell any stench of freedom, you got to keep going. You can't give up. You can't get discouraged. You can't look back. You can't worry about the people that you left behind that are not seeing your vision. You have got to just keep moving forward a little bit at a time, and eventually you will make your way to freedom. And I believe freedom is around the corner for a lot of us. And I actually don't believe that is going to be in our country that we currently live in. So I just want to put that out there. I really don't feel like the atmosphere and some of the things that I see happening around our community is going to afford us the opportunity to live here in the next 5 to 10 years comfortably. And that's just something that I see.
So I want to echo what Ray was saying earlier, just about how inspirational this conversation has been and how great it's been to talk to you. And one of the things that I've been interested in recently is this idea of building power. This idea that while some things, we can change some things by working within the traditional system, in this case, maybe the financial system, we can't change everything. And there's a lot that is working against us, even when we do try to change those little things that we have the power to change. And so I've been very interested in this idea of building people power, building our own power. If they're not going to give us power, we're going to create it ourselves, create our own systems, our own levers, our own mechanisms, and make people respect what we've got going on. And I see that that's what you're doing here with cryptocurrency and with Bitcoin and with blockchain, is you're trying to build these systems of power that don't depend on whether or not real change comes from the White House or from Congress. You're making that change in the community, one person at a time. And I find that very inspirational. I feel like we could just talk about this forever. We do need to wrap up this conversation at some point. I want to close things off on another inspirational and positive note, which is I want to ask you about that Crypto Kids Camp that you alluded to earlier in our conversation. And my understanding is that it's, educational programming and activities based around educating children, getting them to engage with the blockchain and other cutting edge technologies like VR, AR, DeFi, whatever the case may be. So I'm curious what your experience has been working with young people, children and teenagers, how they view cryptocurrency and blockchain. And is crypto for the children, like Wu-Tang was for the children?
Yes, so crypto is for the children. Believe it or not, children learn about Bitcoin and cryptocurrency way quicker than adults. because they're already using it in the video games. They're buying stuff with Robux and they're doing all this other stuff already. So digital currency to them is like second nature. So they're good with it. But what we are trying to get our children to understand is, and their parents, is that work as we know it has changed. People are not going to work for 40 hours a week for 40 years to retire on 40% of what they've been making for the last four. It is not happening with this new generation. They are not all going to go to school. They're all going to be in so many different things. Parents need to really hone in and focus on what is interesting to the child. Yes, they still need to go to school and get a good education, but what else are they going to be doing to be entrepreneurs or to bring on something that they're interested in? Maybe they come to our camp and they don't actually like blockchain and the application, but they may like drones and they may want to know, hey, what do I have to do to fly drones around the NFL stadium? Because I play football, but maybe, my backup is this technology which will allow me to fly the drone around the NFL stadium while the Dallas Cowboys are playing and make this $3, $4, $5, $700 an hour flying this drone. Or maybe this drone is honing in on real estate and I'm going to the different real estate advisors and helping them showcase the houses that they have for sale. All of these things we're bringing to the children's mind early. What is it you like? If you're a baker, how does technology play into you becoming a baker? If you're a fashion designer, how does technology play into this? Drawing, NFTs, all of those things, our children need to be made aware of these technologies so as they grow and as their parents watch them, they're able to actually maneuver them into the space that's most important to them and not actually what we want as parents or what we want as teachers, because that does not fare out well. How many times have you seen people go and get a 4-year degree in something that they really didn't want to get involved in? They just did it because their parents wanted them to, or they really didn't have a direction. And so what we want to do is expose children to every aspect of technology so that they can pick and choose what works or what they like the best. And then that parent can actually take that and have something to build upon. And so that's what we do in Crypto Kids Camp. And we specifically were intentional doing it around the NBA and the NFL. And we did it in and around the NFL and the NBA because a lot of our parents in our inner city hoods across America will go to a football or a basketball game for their children before they'll go to a teacher parent conference. And so we realized that we've got to have these athletes telling these children that technology has to be their plan B. In the event you pull out your ACL, in the event that you don't make it to the NFL or the NBA, which most parents aspire for their children to do, what are you going to fall back on? And we want to make sure that they have that tech foundation so that they can fall back on it and make not just a living wage, but a phenomenal wage at some point if they're going to go work for somebody so that they can go from surviving to thriving. And that's what we want to create with Crypto Kids Camp.
So what I hear you saying is that when you talk to parents, whether through or just adults in general, they may have some skepticism. They may be watching the markets. They may be watching their 401ks and be like, should I really be doing this? But when you talk to kids, they're just like, oh, cool. Yeah, sounds good. Do I have that right?
Yep, that is exactly it. And like, oh, can I get some of that? Can you show me how to create my own NFT, Nyla Hayes, so you can get your NFTs out, your long necky ladies, like just showing them examples of how you can play a video game and make money. We're used to playing video games, but are you making money while you're doing these games? Are you creating your own games? Like, what could this look like for you financially if you started doing something different than just sitting down on your Xbox playing a game? And so it starts to open their mind to possibilities. And so it's a great thing with kids. I love children. My husband and I just took in 4 children. We have 4 children that are siblings, brothers and sisters that would have wound up in the system if not for our ability to bring them in. And so we have a 7-year-old, 8-year-old, 11 and 12. And so there are honorary crypto kids. And so we're learning from them as well as them learning from us and just really seeing what works for children that have been in situations where they need a bit more than just going to school Monday through Friday. And at the end of the day, having absolutely nothing to do during breaks. So Crypto Kids Camp only operates during breaks because I grew up in the hood and I got in the most trouble during breaks because mom and dad had to work and I was at home by myself. And so what else is there to do but go outside and get in trouble? And so in other neighborhoods, the parents are able to pay $1,200 a week for the child to go to space camp. But we can't do that in our hoods. And so that's why we created Crypto Kids Camp so we can be that beast mode on breaks.
Well, listen, Naja, you're doing great work. It's been a pleasure to have this conversation with you. For people who are listening who want to follow what you're up to, where can they do so?
They can follow me on social media at Naja Roberts. No underscores, no numbers, no dots, no periods, as I say, because there are so many scammers out there. Please make sure that you're following just Naja Roberts. Nothing in addition, no 2 S's, no 2 R's. Like literally, there's 67 something scammers on Instagram right now. Just be careful. I will never ask you to give me any Bitcoin to trade for you. I'm not that one. That is not me. So just follow me on social media. And we do a lot of stuff in the community. Ledger and me, 123. We do all kinds of stuff. Wine, Women, and Crypto. On the Block, we do Coinomics, which is kind of like a Shark Tank for coin owners. So you can see that they're not decentralized. Like you can see the person. They're telling you what they're going to do. So we try to get that in their head without shooting down the coin that's talking to us, right? Letting people know they got control over that thing. So if you want to invest, that's Cousin Pete. So you have at it. So anyway, that's it. They can follow me on social media.
Thank you for coming on. That was really inspirational. You're doing God's work. You're doing the work of the people. We need more people like you in the crypto space. The crypto space needs to know that you exist. I'm really just inspired by you. I'm glad I was able to spend this time with you today and kind of absorb your positive energy. You've reminded me that Bitcoin is about more than just making money, because that's how I got into it in a way.
Me too.
I trade crypto and analyze markets all day long. So profit is usually the end goal. And to me, time is valuable and time is freedom. When you have free time, and the way you get free time is by being independent and self-sufficient. And usually that means getting money. So that's kind of always been the thing about Bitcoin for me, is it gives me that self-sovereignty and freedom of time because I am my own boss. But I love everything that you're doing in the community, and that's where it's really at. You're there with the people who could most benefit from knowing about blockchain and Bitcoin and self-banking. So I think that's really commendable, and thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me. And anytime you all need me, please reach out. I'm available. This is what I do all day, every day. So just let me know.
The Agenda is hosted and produced by me, Ray Salmon.
And by me, Jonathan DeYoung. You can listen and subscribe to The Agenda at Cointelegraph.com/podcasts or on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and wherever else podcasts are found.
If you enjoyed what you heard, rate us and leave a review. You can find me on Twitter at HorusHughes, HorusHughes.
And I'm on Twitter, Instagram, and just about everywhere else at MadDopeMadic. That's MadDopeMadic.
Be sure to follow Cointelegraph on Twitter and Instagram at Cointelegraph.